It's almost as if Apple's engineering team has this itch, where every so many years they have to remove something. They're like, we got rid of the headphone jack, must get rid of something else. And the whole tech community is like, get rid of the lightning port, okay? Just switch it to USB-C. It would make everyone so happy. And Apple's like, no, lightning's too good. We need to remove something else. Okay, SIM card tray. You know, that's useless because we have eSIM now, so let's see how many more people Apple can tick off next year. Let's begin. So this started off as a fairly hard-to-believe report from a blog from Brazil that was claiming the iPhone 15 series would at least start moving to eSIM-only iPhones, but certain regions would still have a physical SIM. Whereas Dylan KT, who we've reported on in the past, as well as an anonymous tipster from Mac Rumors, both started claiming that Apple is actually planning on removing the physical SIM card tray in the iPhone 14 lineup. So that introduction of eSIM-only iPhones would be in September of 2022. That may sound like a long ways away until you realize it's probably less than 10 months at this point. And because there's so little information we actually have on the iPhone 14, I wanted to dive into this because I've had fairly little experience with eSIM. I've had it work somewhat reliably in the past, but it's only when you're doing like basic things like first setting up your phone and you just need to plug in that SIM via software through the carrier of your choice. That typically sounds fairly simple, but what I've heard countless horror stories with is when people want to do more complicated things like dual SIM, where it switches depending on the country or the carrier that's available, or you just want to have a business line and a personal line, or you're a tech reviewer and you need to swap out your SIM between multiple different phones throughout the year. That's when eSIM starts to get a little bit more confusing, and having to contact your carrier, tell them that you want to transfer it to this different device, and hopefully it goes well. But again, still heard countless stories of people saying it's supposed to be simple but ends up being far more complicated. I could absolutely see why there's many people that are going to be frustrated by this, but I think the average consumer probably shouldn't mind too much. I mean, I can't necessarily say it's a piece of hardware that I use that regularly, and I'm not the type to do dual SIM or even eSIM. I'm fine with just using my traditional Mint Mobile SIM, because if I want to review or swap to another iPhone for review purposes, or maybe I'm selling one phone and using something in between my upgrades, just being able to pop out my physical SIM and pop it in a new one, and that's about all that's necessary for me to do. That's kind of nice, but as you guys know, I'm planning on keeping my iPhone 13 Pro Max for several years, so that shouldn't be too hard for me to just keep around because I know it has a SIM card slot. But the better question, I think, is why? Is like, what's the big benefit from this? Maybe by having less physical moving parts and having less things that are open and exposed to the elements, Apple can make the iPhone even more water resistant, as if it wasn't water resistant enough as is. And also, I don't think the limiting factor with iPhone water resistance is the SIM card tray. I'm no engineer, I don't know this for sure, but that thing is pretty rock solid in there with a tight seal. So if anything, it's probably microphones and speakers that are preventing better water resistance. Perhaps the better reason is because the iPhone 14 may be eSIM only. That takes up far less space on the inside of the phone, which they can use that physical SIM card tray area for bigger battery or better cameras, or an additional LiDAR sensor, since the first one is pointless anyway. Let's just throw in some more LiDAR, because why not? I'm guessing that's the primary logic, is they just want to have better use of the internal space, but I suppose we should have considered this inevitable, as, you know, Apple's dream vision of iPhone is to be this simplistic, minimal piece of glass, and there's so little grooves or real indentations that you can pick up on. And many people think that in the future, Apple's just going to ditch all buttons and switches and SIM card slots because we just want to have this clean, minimal piece of glass. But after seeing Apple like pitch the touch bar and then go backwards on it, and for the first few years of iPad it was all about the virtual keyboard, but now Apple seems to be actively trying to get people to buy physical keyboards to go with their iPads, it makes me think that volume buttons are probably here to stay, as well as power. There were rumors years ago that Apple wanted to switch everything to haptic feedback once they switched the home button to haptic, and in the future there just won't be any buttons on the iPhone, and it will just be all virtual controls, and it digitally is able to measure the pressure sensitivity that you apply. But I think for software crashes and hard reset backups and that type of thing, Apple's probably going to view buttons as not that big a deal, and they'll keep it around for a long time. And I think removing the SIM card tray is probably going to be less controversial than removing the ringer switch, which personally, my phone is on silent all the time because if I get notifications, I would much rather just get a little tap on my watch than hearing the loud bing every time I get a text. jacks, no thank you. So I'd be fine if they removed the ringer switch, just like they already have on iPads. And if you want your phone to make noises, just go into Control Center and turn it on. But still, I interact with so many people every live stream that say how important the ringer switch is to them because they use it regularly, and sometimes they want to be quiet, sometimes they want it to make noise. I would advise everyone to just make their phone be quiet and get a watch of some kind, because that's such a better way to manage notifications. But SIM card slot, yeah, I feel like most people aren't going to be using that too much unless they're traveling. So my condolences to those of you that need to travel and swap out SIMs every so often, because if the carriers overseas are not very good at transferring eSIMs or supporting that dual SIM functionality that the iPhone has to offer, you might be in for some more headaches with the iPhone 14 series. But I don't think this will tick off as many people as just making a straight up portless iPhone, which has been rumored for years, but Apple seems too chicken to do it. Maybe this can scratch that engineering team itch that's like, we must remove something, and marketing's not letting them remove the charge port yet. So maybe they can settle with the SIM card slot. That way we have some kind of controversy that Apple can brag about courage with. Can you just imagine the physical SIM adapter? You know, you have like this lightning dongle that comes out and you put your physical SIM card in that way. Or they'll have MagSafe SIM card support. You'll drop it in this little reader and it slaps on the back of your phone. There's your SIM card. It's now a SIM wallet. Apple needs more MagSafe accessories, right? Feel free to let me know your theories on what sounds believable and what doesn't down in the comments below. This is your Apple Sheep here. I'll see you all in the next one.